Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the June 6, 2019 special edition of The Breast There Is, The Breast There Was, and The Breast There Ever Will Be Wrestling Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mikey B, WWE. And today's podcast is also episode 2 of my third season of doing this podcast. And it's a special podcast today because I will be giving my predictions for the WWE Super ShowDown pay-per-view in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Now, this pay-per-view is set to take place tomorrow, which is a Friday, at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is the time zone I'm in. Currently, as I'm recording this podcast right now, it is 8 p.m. on Thursday night. I typically try to, before giving my predictions for any of these pay-per-view shows, wait until the WWE.com has listed the official match card. And the fact that it's 8 p.m. the night before a pay-per-view that's taking place on a Friday afternoon, at least here in North America, this is pretty much as late as I could wait. So I relied on some other sources to see what the likely match card will be. And as well, I mean, I can't wait until just before the pay-per-view would begin because, like myself and probably most other people who are here in this time zone, we're going to be at work at this time or at school or whatever. So this is what I got to give you. I'm going to give you the 9 matches which they've discussed previously on WWE broadcasting and which other reliable sources are stating will be the matches to be featured. Before I begin with tomorrow's pay-per-view predictions, I should initially state my track record thus far in season 3 of my predictions. So far, of this season, I've only reviewed the matches from the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which was in May, and on that I fared with 6 correct out of 10 matches on the night. So 6 out of 10 heading into Super ShowDown. I'm not very impressed or I'm not very excited about tomorrow's pay-per-view for a number of reasons. I voiced my displeasure about this last year when the WWE did their Greatest Royal Rumble pay-per-view event, which was the first pay-per-view following WrestleMania last year. It became evident to me as the match card was forming that there was an absence of women on the match card, and I thought, okay, what's going on here? And sure enough, just like this year, there are no women featured on the match card, clearly with some sort of issues or whatever the case is in Saudi Arabia. They won't allow women to wrestle. The fact that WWE has agreed to a multi-year deal with this company over in Saudi Arabia, I think is deplorable and it's disgraceful. On top of which, it's just the hypocrisy of the WWE right now. They're making such a fuss about the first women's this, the first women's that. They had the first all women's pay-per-view last fall. Evolution, and they've introduced the women's tag team belts, which is great. They've done a lot of great firsts for women, including this year WrestleMania, the first time ever of the 35 years of WrestleManias. The final match of the night was an all-women's triple threat match. Surely the most talked about thing from this year's WrestleMania was that match, besides the one match which wound up being really great in a classic match between Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan. But as far as the lead up to WrestleMania and in terms of all the media attention, it was all placed on that main event, that this was the first time ever, which is a great thing. I'm all for that, all for equality. I think that's amazing. And so, for the company to go from that to, 2 months later, going to, advertising and promoting some pay-per-view that doesn't even feature any of the female superstars, is not allowed to, is ridiculous. So shame on you, WWE. I'm only giving these predictions for this show because I know there's championship matches on the line, and for The storyline purposes, that's what I need to be doing, is still stating my predictions, but I'm also voicing my displeasure and disappointment overall with this company for continuing to do this. And because it's also a weird one-off show with only men being featured, no women, there's a lot of dumb matches which are just kind of coming out of nowhere, one-off appearances, as you'll see when I state my predictions for this show. So beginning with the first of the 9 matches featured on this pay-per-view, it is a 50-man battle royal, which is reminiscent of last year when they did the greatest Royal Rumble with 50 men in that Royal Rumble match. This year they're doing a 50-man just battle royal. I don't know how they're even going to fit 50 people in that ring. It's going to be stupid, ridiculous. They haven't really talked that much about that match leading up to this event tomorrow. And considering I have a 2% chance of even guessing the right person, even though I don't even know who all the competitors are going to be, I'm just going to choose one of the big names who's left off the pay-per-view card, who I think is certainly a fan favorite, a popular choice, which I'm just going to go with AJ Styles winning the 50-man Battle Royal tomorrow. I'm not even sure if he's going to be in it. This could very well be a prediction I get wrong. That said, I expect to get most of these predictions right because for most of them, there's going to be no storyline continuity. That's just, again, WWE deciding, hey, let's fit a bunch of people onto this pay-per-view with no relevance to anything, just so we all get a tremendous payday, which they are. Last year I remember reading articles and hearing podcasts about how people involved in the pay-per-view, like Jim Ross, who came to commentate during that show, it was one of the greatest paydays he ever experienced in all of his years working for WWE. So all these people are just getting fatter and richer with all this big paycheck, which I certainly hope they spread the wealth to some of the women on the roster when they get back. So anyways, the first match, that 50-man Battle Royal, my prediction for that is AJ Styles being the victor there. Match number 2 is a handicap match with Lars Sullivan taking on the Lucha House Party, which is a 3-on-1 handicap match. The team in the Lucha House Party has Gran Metalik, Kalisto, and Lince Dorado. Lars Sullivan, this is his first pay-per-view match. He's going to win this one. No question about it. So Lars Sullivan will win. The third match of the night is Braun Strowman taking on Bobby Lashley. Just Braun Strowman. That's my pick. Again, I don't have to give much analysis with most of these matches because there's been no build-up, no proper build-up. It's been very sloppy, just loosely thrown together. Braun Strowman, I think, will beat Bobby Lashley in this one-off style match because he's a better wrestler and more popular. The fourth match is Roman Reigns taking on Shane McMahon. This is a joke. Shane McMahon should not be wrestling at all. Pretty much, period. It's annoying to me that he already steals matches on the WrestleMania pay-per-view card. And here he is again appearing in a match, getting a huge paycheck against one of the top superstars in the company. Roman Reigns will win this one. And then I suspect that Shane McMahon's cronies, which can include a variety of people, Drew McIntyre, The Revival, Elias, a lot of them will probably come down and interfere and help beat up Roman Reigns after, but Roman Reigns will be the victor. The WWE, I believe, is going for feel-good results in most of these matches. And this, speaking about that Roman Reigns-Shane McMahon match, that actually it makes me second-guess my 50-man Battle Royal prediction of AJ Styles, because I'm noticing that Drew McIntyre is nowhere to be seen on the match card. And he's someone that I believe, and I've been saying even in the last several months, that he's someone I suspect will get a big push this year. And he's a big guy. And I also don't know AJ Styles' health situation right now. So I think, and I don't normally do this, but I'm going to change my prediction mid-prediction show. My 50-man Battle Royal prediction, I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre to win. I might kick myself if AJ Styles winds up winning, but Drew McIntyre is my pick to win the 50-man Battle Royal. And now coming back to the Roman Reigns, Shane McMahon, this match, I don't see this feud going on much longer. I think once Roman Reigns defeats Shane tomorrow, it's going to carry over to Elias or Drew McIntyre, someone like that. But Roman Reigns is the victor of that fourth match. So moving on to the fifth one now, since I've already circled back to the first prediction. The fifth match features Triple H taking on Randy Orton. Another one that they've done, they've tried to really promote in these last few weeks, because these guys have such a storied history. In my mind, what makes sense is that Triple H should not be winning in a match like this. I have a bad feeling that they're going to have more matches from this later on, probably next year's WrestleMania or who knows when. But I think the fact that Randy Orton is still your active wrestler on the roster and is one of the all-time greats, and he's much younger, he's got to be the winner here. Triple H, you better do the job to Randy Orton, or else Triple H, what more favoritism does he get being a part of this family and married to Vince's daughter Stephanie? So Randy Orton, you better beat Triple H, or that's going to be even more infuriating, the WWE. So Randy Orton's my pick there. The sixth match is for the Intercontinental Championship, featuring Finn Balor as the champion, who is appearing as the Demon King, taking on Andrade. I don't believe in any of the years since Finn Balor has been on the main roster, when he has appeared as Demon King, has he ever lost. So to me, that's usually a surefire way to predict he's going to win. So Finn Balor is going to win this match and retain his Intercontinental Championship over Andrade. That's one matchup that a feud might continue on, I could see, because they're both quite talented, and this might just be the beginning of that. But most of these matches, there's no continuity at all. It's just a random assortment of matches. The seventh match is for the WWE Championship. The champion Kofi Kingston is taking on Dolph Ziggler, who hasn't been around in many months and seems to kind of disappear pretty often. To me, there's no way they're taking the belt from Kofi Kingston yet. Kofi Kingston will retain over Dolph Ziggler. Who knows if Dolph Ziggler will even be back in the storyline for a while. He just seems to disappear for months at a time lately, which is kind of, confusing with the creative team there at WWE. But regardless, Kofi Kingston's retaining this WWE Championship, no doubt about that. Eighth match of the night is for the Universal Championship. The champion Seth Rollins is taking on Baron Corbin. And for anyone that's been watching the last couple weeks, especially this last week, it was a very muddled explanation. To open up Monday Night Raw, Michael Cole tried to explain that Stephanie McMahon was upset with Brock Lesnar, who recently won the Money in the Bank briefcase at the last pay-per-view, was upset with his actions as of late, and had ordered him to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase that night on Monday Night Raw, which to me is completely ridiculous. The whole point of that briefcase and the Money in the Bank briefcase is that the superstar has a year to decide when to cash in at their own judgment call. So that's the fact that this came out of nowhere. It was poorly developed, poorly explained. There was confusion all around, and it didn't even wind up happening. There was the threat of it happening. Brock Lesnar came out and threatened to cash in, but did not, after pummeling Seth Rollins in the ring. But he didn't, and we could hear him say to Paul Heyman, his manager, that Friday he's going to do it Friday. So we're led to believe he's going to cash it in at this Super Showdown. But because this is not an official match or anything like that, and who knows if this is just going to be more dumb tactics by Brock Lesnar's character and the WWE to just further delay this, Seth Rollins is going to win his match versus Baron Corbin. That's the only thing I can predict. Lesnar will certainly appear at this show, but whether or not he cashes in, that's a whole different thing, which no one knows for certain. So, but for the actual match itself that's listed, Seth Rollins will retain the Universal Championship against Baron Corbin, at least during the course of that match and for the outcome of that match. Whatever happens after, who knows. And the final match of the night is The Undertaker taking on Goldberg. Yep, that's right. A 54-year-old taking on a 52-year-old. And the 52-year-old Goldberg announced his retirement 2 years ago from WrestleMania after he lost to Brock Lesnar. So, he just got talked into a big payday when they're trying to make this seem like some sort of important match because they've never fought before. Big deal. Like, these guys, Undertaker's one of the absolute greatest of all time. I have nothing but love and respect for him. But he's also far beyond his prime, who seems to only be doing these big payday shows now. He didn't even fight at WrestleMania this year, which is the first time in a long, long time. So, and Goldberg, I mean, this guy's never been a good wrestler. He was certainly a big-time popular fan favorite during his run in WCW, and I guess beyond that. But he's never been more than a 2 or 3 move guy. He's he's not a safe worker. He notoriously ended the career of my all-time favorite wrestler, and who I believe is the greatest wrestler of all time, Bret the Hitman Hart. He's a dangerous worker. He's not a safe wrestler. He's not a good wrestler. He's a former football player who just had a good physique and landed a career in wrestling after that. But either way, this match is going to be brutal. It's going to be short. It's going to probably be about 5-6 minutes long because, again, it's a 52-year-old taking on a 54-year-old. And they better make The Undertaker win here for the feel-good moment there. So before I wrap up my podcast, one thing of note, the WWE on their broadcasting has also in recent weeks been advertising this WWE Super Showdown as great as WrestleMania, if not better. However, I noticed this last week they did not make any mention of that, probably because in consideration for how disrespectful the company, them doing this without the female superstars is, and I think it's, again, deplorable that they would even suggest something like that when this year's installment of WrestleMania is, again, the biggest, most anticipated thing about it was the final match of the night, the main event being an all-women's match for the first time. So, I don't know, WWE, like, get your act together. This is really a shame that you're doing this, and I don't support you at all for this. And I mean, if that means get out of your long-term contract with these guys, do it. Like, stop being hypocrites. So, sounding off here, a bit of a, I'm venting quite a bit about the company in this installment, but they deserve it. They shouldn't be doing an event like this, and I hope they get a lot of criticism for it. But in spite of that, I hope that you listeners also enjoyed my predictions and my thoughts about what the company is doing right now. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you liked what you heard today. And also feel free to add any questions below. So thanks for listening, and see you next time.